Greetings. My name is Robert, and I am here today to share with you my gripe with plastic bags. Plastic bags are typically made of high-density polyethylene, and that was invented in the 1960s. By the 1980s, plastic bags were the popular choice for transporting your groceries. The Wall Street Journal estimates that Americans alone use over 100 billion plastic bags every year. Now, to make those plastic bags requires about 12 million barrels of crude oil, and you can compare that to the over 400 million barrels of oil that the United States imports every year. And other than the atmospheric concerns from burning all those fossil fuels, that will not be the focus of my topic. No, my video instead is a focus on what happens to those plastic bags. What is the fate of one of these polyethylene bags, or even cellophane wraps, the wraps that food is wrapped in? What happens to them? Where do they all go? Well, you could recycle them if your community offers it. Most stores actually do allow you to return those bags. But the most common fate of a polyethylene bag is to end up in, well, the ocean. How do they get to the ocean? Well, first they're thrown in the trash, and then from the trash they're brought to some kind of dump and transferred to some kind of landfill. But spillage occurs, and at one point the plastic bag eventually gets washed out of that landfill into a river and towards the ocean. Okay, and then you think, oh, okay, well, it's in the ocean. What happens next? Well, you've probably heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and you've probably heard of the one in the Atlantic and the one in the Indian Ocean. In fact, there are 4 of these garbage patches. And that even isn't the worst, though, because these plastic bags can make it into those garbage patches. But then what? They float around. Well, polyethylene takes about 1,000 years to decompose back into its basic elements and molecules that make it. But when these plastic bags are floating in this giant ocean patch and exposed to sunlight, they don't necessarily decompose, but they break apart. They become brittle. And polyethylene and other soft plastics essentially become infinitely smaller. So you can take a little piece that's a regular grocery bag and then split it and pull on it and rip it, and it gets smaller and tinier and teenier into these little teeny pieces that you might think, oh, well, cool, it's gone then, great. Well, no, the law of conservation of matter says that you cannot destroy matter, you can only make it smaller or bigger. And that's what's happening with these plastic bags. They are getting smaller and smaller, and the little pieces are floating about. And you may see in some of the images of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch or the Great Ocean Garbage Patches, little tiny specks. Well, there's your plastic, the little teeny tiny specks of plastic. Those teeny specks of plastic, they look pretty tasty to fish and turtles and other organisms. So then they eat them because they're hungry. And then we like to fish, humans like to fish, and we catch trout and tuna and salmon and all these other critters. Guess what can be found inside these fish? Plastic. Specifically, it's called a microplastic. Any piece of plastic that is less than 2 millimeters in area, essentially, or you can call it volume, 2 cubic millimeters in volume. Okay. And then that food is cooked and humans eat it. And that's not safe. It's not healthy. So if you're like me and you do not enjoy eating plastic, there are a few things that you can do to alleviate Earth's plastic choking hazard. on small parts. One of the easiest things is that you can return those plastic shopping bags to the grocery store where you got it from. Those stores can then recycle the plastic bag correctly and break it down to make any other number of plastic items. Be careful with your single stream recycling because not all localities will accept it. These, what they're called soft plastics, they're plastic wraps. They're difficult to sort out from hard plastic, something like the plastic that your cell phone is made of, or maybe even the keyboard on your computer. That's a hard plastic. Those can be recycled fine. But these soft plastics, check with your recycling plant, make sure that they can accept them. What you can also do is, instead of using those plastic bags in the first place, you could follow suit with California and just not use them at all. There are other ways to transport your groceries. I'm not going to say paper bags. I used to be a paper bag guy. I did some extra research, found out the paper bags are actually pretty much just as bad as the plastic bags. They're easier to recycle and sort, but as far as the resources that they use and the litter that they produce, paper bags are not much better than plastic bags.